bio about myself. So, grew up in Connecticut. I was actually born. My dad was in the service. He was in the Navy in World War II, the Army in the Korean War, and the Air Force in the Vietnamese War. And as such, I was born in 1967. Do the math, I'm 55. I was born in England on an Air Force base in England. So I was actually dual citizen. I was a British citizen and a US citizen until I signed up for the draft on my 18th birthday. Went to University of Connecticut, raised in Connecticut. Went into, after I graduated, went in as a lieutenant in the Air Force. Flew C-141s, which is big 4-engine airplane, dropped parachutes, tanks, and all that stuff. Right away, I was involved in the back end of the first Iraq War, after which I applied for and I got to be one of the first people ever to fly a brand new jet called the C-17, which is now 30 years old. When I started flying them, there was 3 of them in the Air Force. I met my wife in college, by the way, Kathy, Shannon's mom. We got married when I was a lieutenant in the Air Force. So moving forward, C-17s, I flew that through the 90s. We lived in Charleston. We lived in Altus, Oklahoma. Shannon was born when I was based in Charleston. Got promoted to captain, major. Her sister Paige was born when I lived in Oklahoma. Moved back to Charleston. I got out of the active duty and I became a reservist. And I've been a reservist ever since then. So that means I got a job as an airline captain or as an airline pilot. And I've been doing that since 1999 and being part-time in the Air Force Reserve. In the meantime, I was super fortunate to then be able to move up to Massachusetts and fly C-5. So Shannon was raised in Tolland from kindergarten through 12th grade and in college and beyond. In addition to that, I started flying other airplanes, C-5s. I flew the 130. I got a great opportunity to go be based overseas in Germany back in 17 through 19, which was fantastic. That's where I started making a promotion to general. I became a 2-star, got back, ended up being down at Georgia, where I lived for 2 years as a numbered Air Force commander in charge of about 1/3 of the Air Force Reserve, which is about 74,000 people. 1/3 of it I was in charge of. I did something right because my boss brought me up to be his deputy, and back in August I got promoted again to the 3rd star, as you can see there. And I'm in charge of the Air Force Reserve Command now. So, and I'll tell you about what I do in that in the next. When I joined the Air Force, I had my bosses tell me, and I tell my subordinates now too, your number one job when you come in the Air Force is to go. I went to pilot training. Everything I lived, breathed, eat, slept, everything was one thing and one thing only: to be successful at pilot training so I can go on and be a pilot. There's a high attrition rate in pilot training. At the time when I went through, it was a lot higher than it is now. Attrition, meaning people fail out. You can get sick, you might not even know it. So when you finish pilot training, your only job is to be good at flying. So for the first 2 years, 4 years, every commander I had said, your number one job is to be the best flyer that you can be. So learn your craft, learn your profession, so you get good at it. And then you progressively upgrade from a co-pilot, which is sitting in the right seat, to a first pilot, which is sitting in either seat, to an aircraft commander, which is sitting in the left seat, which allows you to be in command and totally in charge. It's like being the captain of an airline. As you progress past the 4 to 6 year mark, you start getting a little bit more responsibilities for administrative stuff, taking care of, making sure that I was a scheduler when I was younger. I worked in tactics, doing airdrop and drawing maps for airdrop. As you get older and older, you go to classes in professional military education, which teaches you how to do more in-depth stuff outside of the flying. Then as you become a little bit older in rank, you get jobs such as important jobs like as a flight commander. So you're actually in the chain of command now, taking care of people. From a flight commander to a deputy of operations, where you're ensuring that the operations go smoothly for the entire squadron. Squadron for me, growing up in the 141, the C-17, the C-5, was like 200 people. So my job was to ensure that, like a quarter of those people were doing the things that they were supposed to do to get ready and fit and make sure that they were always able to do the mission. As I became older and became a squadron commander, I was actually in charge of those 200 people, making sure not only they had the money, but also the environment to do the mission effectively. As I got older again, I became a vice wing commander. So now I was the number 2 in charge of 2,000 people. As I progressed even further, I became assistant to a director of tanker airlift control. So making sure all of the heavy airplanes in the Air Force, operated well. Moving forward even further, I became a 2-star general at European Command stationed in Germany, and I oversaw and was in charge of every exercise that the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines and Coast Guard did in Europe for 2 years. Moved on, less flying, so no flying during those senior roles, but now when I got to Georgia, I got to fly because it was a flying job. And I was in charge of all of the tactical airlift, about 12,000 people, and in charge of about a third of the Air Force Reserve flying. And then now, doing what I'm doing, I'm allowed to fly again, which is really cool. So I just got requalified in the C-130, which is 4 propellers, down in Georgia. So I'm allowed to fly now, which is great. I'm actually authorized to fly any airplane in the Air Force now. But in addition to that, now I'm in charge of 74,000 people, $6.4 billion budget to ensure that they have everything they need to be successful, to be able to defend the United States in case of any adverse action by any potential threat. And there's plenty of threats out there, as you see in the news every day. And not much. I've never been there, so I can't tell you. And as you find out in the military, if there's no need to know, they don't tell you. So while I have a lot of clearances to be read in on a lot of really cool stuff, it's not one of them. I've seen it from afar, but I haven't seen it for anything more than anybody else in an airline who knows to look to the north when they're flying south of Nevada and Las Vegas knows, if you weren't in the military. Well, what I've always enjoyed, even though it's not always as comfortable as I'd like it, I've always thought that I would have been pretty decent as a broadcaster. I probably would have enjoyed going into either TV, broadcasting, but I don't know if that would have worked with my hairline. Certainly radio. I've been told many times I've got a face for radio. So I think I would have loved doing something like that. How that works. Well, I don't get a driver. I don't get anything super special other than a really nice house by being a 3-star now. My daily routine is I get up about 5:15 every morning and I go to work out. And I've got a Peloton upstairs and I got to stay fit because the jobs are long hours and they're pretty tiring, exhausting, especially when I start traveling a lot. So it's important that I stay fit all the time. I have a good breakfast every morning. And then I come into work, usually leave around 7:15. I get into the office and my schedule is filled from start to finish. This is an example of my schedule for today. And all those blocks are, from start to finish, all those blocks are me out of the office or in a meeting. I'm meeting with everybody from people that work for me all the way up through the Secretary of the Air Force, which is the civilian leadership of the Air Force. I met today with the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Vice Chief, who is the number one person in the United States Air Force. And we talked about personnel issues. I usually take a salad for lunch, again, trying to stay a little bit healthy. And then, watch the news as well. Trying to keep up with my email all day. I try to leave, even though right now it's 4:45. I usually leave around 4:30, but I was late in getting this video done. So I get home, try to relax every evening with my wife, with Shannon's mom. Have dinner together every night and watch the news, watch Jeopardy, and then just veg. I go to bed usually at 9:30 every night. During the summertime, it's a little bit nicer. I'll try to get 9 holes of golf in after work. And then on the weekends, I try to play golf as much as possible. But that's just daily. I just returned yesterday from being on the road for 8 days, where I went from DC to California for 2 days, California to Hawaii for 4 days, multiple tours while in Hawaii for military, multiple meetings and conferences, and took off out of there on Monday evening and didn't get home until Tuesday evening yesterday. So that's when I'm not in the office. I figured I'd just show you around the offices real quick. You've seen me from the sitting down perspective, but I've got some great stuff from over my career. That's football just from a couple weeks ago. Shannon's sister set up a game where I went out on the field and got to receive the game ball. Great view right now. I don't know if I could swap it around, but it's got a great view of right outside on the Potomac River. The rest of my office, nice C-17, which I flew along the way, and even another view of the C-17 there. Oh, don't look at that stuff. That's all classified. Just kidding. And then I'll quickly walk you out real quick just to say hello to the staff. I can't do any of this stuff without my staff. So anyway, say hey everybody. This is
Hey everybody. Hey everybody.
Shannon's class. This is the ones who make sure that I go to all my meetings on time and have the proper things to say. And you're getting a nice shiny view of my forehead right there. So anyway, I hope this was useful to everybody. Well, you know, you don't know you're a good leader until you actually get the opportunity to try to do it. So I think I can honestly say that I'm a good leader. I don't think I'd be given the opportunities to do what I've done if I wasn't. I think I've also learned that I'm very good under pressure. I think Shannon can explain to you that regardless of what and where anything happens, where there might be a requirement to act under pressure, I use it as a teaching moment to try to teach both her and her sister on what to be considering in order to be effective when you're under pressure. Slow down the heart rate. Think about what the immediate tasks are that you need to do in order to be successful. What's the first and most immediate problem, and how do you work through that? How to get to the next? I've learned that I'm impatient, but I've learned that I'm impatient. So I've learned how to manage that and how to work with it. What else? Those are the big ones that I've taken away. You know, what comes out when you're under pressure, what comes out when you have the opportunity to lead, I think truly gets at the core of who you are, especially under the pressure. If you truly find out what you're like when you see how you can operate while working under that pressure in the military. I think it's fantastic. It's an absolutely wonderful career field to go into. It gives you the opportunity to explore anything that's out there. You know, whether or not you want to be a cyber warrior, break code, hack on the dime of the U.S. military, or if you want to go out and do something, fly a fighter, fly a heavy, fly a bomber. If you want to be an intel specialist and work your way into a career field that might lead to something else with, we call them 3 digits. It's a fantastic opportunity. There's so many things to do out there in the military. The key is, if you could find something that you truly enjoy, if there's something that you really love about some aspect of the military, then you should pursue it and find out whether or not that's a good fit for you. A lot of times lately, we've been asked, why do you stay? Why have you stayed as long as you have? And I've been in now for over 33 years. And I stay because I love it. I enjoy doing the airline stuff, but I enjoy even more the opportunity to make a huge difference in the lives of any one or number of people with the 74,000 in the Air Force Reserve. The opportunity to change someone's life for the better, to fix something, to look down the road. My day consists of looking on how I can make the next 15 years, not today, but the next 15 years better for the Air Force, for the country, and for the Air Force Reserve. So if you have the opportunity to do something like that, if something excites you about that kind of responsibility, then you should absolutely pursue the opportunity to, or you should at least take a look at the Air Force and the Air Force Reserve, by the way. I'll tell you how I celebrate it. Tomorrow's an off day for me in celebration of Veterans Day, and I've got a tea time at 8:50 in the morning at the Army Navy Country Club to go play golf. So that's how I celebrate most days off, is by golfing.